Well, good evening and welcome to this digitally enabled online meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, held on Monday, July 5th, 2021. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg, and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the Deputy Clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7:01 p.m. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archive video. I'm getting a thumbs up from our IT extraordinaire Superman Simon, who's saying that we're broadcasting appropriately. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to those who are joining us via the YouTube channel. Welcome to councillors, staff, and any delegations who are intending to participate in this meeting. At this time, I invite your decorum. I advise that I do have attendance regrets tonight from Councillor Duncan and Councillor Johnston. Let us move on to item 2.1 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have already declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session, and if they haven't already, to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the proceedings of the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. I have a short list already. Let's begin with Councillor Anstead. Welcome, Councillor Anstead, tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you this evening, I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest on item 5.5.1, the accounts, specifically the daycares. My son attends the St. Mary's daycare, and also on item 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anstead. Next up, I have Councillor Behrens. Welcome, Councillor Behrens.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I will declare a conflict of pecuniary interest on 5.5.1, and in addition, 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. I have grandchildren attending for these accounts, the North Perth Spinrite Child and Family Center, as well as the St. Mary's daycare and after school programming. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, I have Deputy Mayor Kellum. Welcome, Deputy Mayor.
Well, thank you, and hello again, Mayor Kasenberg. Today, I would like to declare pecuniary interest on items 5.5.1. First off, with regards to the Perth Meadows accounts, as my mother and father-in-law are tenants there, and then moving on to the daycare accounts, as my grandson attends the St. Mary's Daycare Center, and then continuing on with 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you all. Any other councillor wishing to make a declaration at this point? Okay, we're not seeing any evidence of that. Let's just explain our virtual processes. I will systematically be trying to seek consent from various councillors as movers and seconders of the various resolutions and bylaws that will be put before us tonight. I'll do this to some degree alphabetically. Should a councillor not wish to respond to a request, they may say so, and I will move to the next name on the alphabetical list. Regarding speaking to our business, councillors tonight will identify themselves through our conferencing technologies chat function. The clerk is assisting me tonight in maintaining the speaking order from that source. Councillors are allowed on their turn to deliver a primary question or comment and may make one supplemental. We will follow speaking order carefully, and any councillor wishing to have a second say will have to indicate again and go to the bottom of the list. This is a normal process consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. Councillors are reminded that if I believe you're not audible, I will call on you. I'll let you know. Councillors are further also asked to maintain a mute state in the web conference until I have called upon you for a verbal reaction. Should any of our votes or your votes not show up In eScribe, I will call on you when things seem stalled to register a manual vote. And I think you know the procedure. Take yourself off mute, declare your intention on the motion, and then return to mute. That moves us along to item 2.2 on our agenda. I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting that reads as follows, that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Can I start with Councillor Behrens tonight? Will you serve as our mover for that?
Yes, I will move that motion.
Thank you. And we're missing Councillor Duncan, so let's move on. Deputy Mayor Callum, would you serve as our seconder for that?
Yes, I will second that motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this matter? Let's have that vote. Okay. Okay, so we're missing Councillor Rothwell's vote.
No, it's there.
Oh, is it there? All right, we have everybody, so that is carried. Thank you. And so we're just sort of taking notice that Councillor Richardson is just temporarily absent. He was rushing home after the Court of Revision to connect and needed a few moments, so we expect him shortly. Thank you. That's carried. So that brings us to item number 3 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. And these items are placed on our agenda because they're believed to be non-contentious, yet they require either council's recognition and or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item or a few items from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and individual action may do so. We have tonight 9 items on the consent agenda, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, do any of you have a desire to extract any of these items for further discussion or action? Fairfield, are we seeing anything? Councillor Rothwell, welcome. Councillor Rothwell, you might be muted. Did you want to take the floor?
There, yes. Hello, Mayor Todd, members of council. I'd like to have conversation and discussion regarding item 3.9, Township of Hudson support for fire departments, please.
Okay, noted. Do you perceive a potential action there, Councillor Rothwell?
My suggestion, if council agrees, is that we would lend our support to the Township of Hudson resolution to support our fire departments for asking both the federal and provincial levels of governments to lend their support to our fire departments. Thank you.
Okay, so why don't we extract that and we'll do this in 2 steps then, I think, if that's all right. Anyone else would like to have something pulled from the consent agenda for further discussion or action? I don't think we're seeing any others. So why don't we revise the resolution that's been prepared for us, and we'll receive consent items 3.1 to 3.8. So therefore, the resolution for our consideration, council, is that consent items 3.1 to 3.8 be received for information and the minutes of the June 21st, 2021 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I call on Councillor Richardson, who I guess has joined us, to be our mover for that one?
I will move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as seconder?
I'll second the motion. Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one, which we've carved off one piece so that we can have a more fruitful discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, let's have that vote. So that is carried. Thank you. And now, Councillor Rothwell, you've already given us a little bit of a hint of where you're heading with this, but I'd like to offer you the floor at this point to share your comments and invite your fellow councillors to consider. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. fellow councillors, I just would like to see if there's support at council to North Perth Council to support this resolution from the Township of Hudson, showing support for our fire departments. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to address them. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm perceiving that we need a resolution here that is something like this, Clerk Barfelds, that the council receive item 3.9 and direct staff to send a letter of support related to this matter to the appropriate individuals who I assume include our local MPP and MP. And do we want to share that with the rest of the municipalities of Ontario, as some are prone to do? Great. Okay. And okay, so the emo list. All right. Councillor Rothwell, I'll call on you since this is your interest here. Will you serve as mover for that?
Yes, I'd be happy to do so. Thank you.
Great. And Councillor Seiler, would you serve as a seconder for that one?
I will second that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. Is there any discussion or debate on this matter? Are you seeing anything, Clerk Barfelds? Okay, there isn't. Resolution is to the effect it will receive the item and that we will direct staff to send a letter of support on behalf of this council to a range of stakeholders that are commonly sent to, including our MP, our MPP, other municipalities in Ontario. Let's have that vote. And we're looking for one more. Who are we missing?
Mine didn't pop up, but I'm in favor.
Great, it's Councillor Richardson. So with that, that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Rothwell, for drawing that one to our attention. I'll look the shape of that one myself. All right, that brings us next then to agenda item number 4. At this time, we do have an opportunity to conduct a public meeting related to a proposed amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw instigated by O'Malley Homes on behalf of 2244278 Ontario and pertaining to reducing exterior side yard setback for a single lot in an approved subdivision in Listowel. To facilitate the public meeting, we must temporarily adjourn from our regular council meeting. I have before me a motion to make that happen that reads as follows: that the council of the municipality of North Perth adjourns at 7:13 p.m. for the purpose of a public meeting under the Planning Act concerning an application to amend the North Perth zoning bylaw by O'Malley Homes and 2244278 Ontario, Inc. Councillor Andreessen, can I call on you to serve as our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstedt, will you second that one?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate from council on this? Let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Which means that we are temporarily adjourned for the purposes of the public meeting. This time then, it's my pleasure to welcome all those on council and staff and those who have come as delegates, if any, to a public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act for a proposed amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. This is a statutory public meeting pursuant to the Ontario Planning Act to deal with an application for an amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw submitted by O'Malley Homes Waterloo, Inc. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by council. Those in attendance remotely wishing to make comment concerning this application will be given an opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision must make verbal submission during this public meeting or have made a written submission to the council. Those who want to receive notice of the municipality's decision concerning this application must notify the clerk by email or telephone giving their mailing address and telephone number. At this time, we move to a summary of the application for the bylaw amendment. And I believe tonight we have Mr. Sean Yilmaz, our North Perth planner, with the County of Perth to lead us through that. So welcome, Mr. Yilmaz. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Kasenberg, members of council. I hope everyone is well this evening. So the application for a zoning bylaw amendment has been submitted by O'Malley Homes Incorporated on behalf of the property owner to reduce the exterior side yard setback to 4.5 meters or 15 feet, where 6 meters or 20 feet is normally required. The subject land is the subject land is vacant and is part of the Emerald Green Subdivision Phase 3. The draft approved plan of subdivision is in the process of final registration. However, at the time of writing the staff report, the plans were not yet registered. The applicant has provided a sketch to illustrate the location of the proposed dwelling on the property and the nature of the reduction of the exterior side yard setback as proposed. The dwelling slightly encroaches into this required 6 meter setback toward the rear portion of the dwelling. So decisions on zoning bylaw amendment applications are required to be consistent with the provincial policy statement and the guiding official plans, which include the County of Perth official plan and the Listowel Ward official plan. The subject property is located within a settlement area and is a lot on a draft approved plan of subdivision. The property is within the residential designation of the Listowel Ward official plan. Section 5.5.5 of the Listowel Ward official plan provides policies for evaluating development proposals for single detached dwellings. This includes locating developments close to amenities, having access onto a municipal road, and accommodating sufficient parking. Regard for the lot fabric and the built form shall also be considered. It is the opinion of staff that the resulting development with a slightly reduced side yard setback will maintain the character of the development previously considered and draft plan approved. The property is within the residential 1 zone or the R1 zone of the North Perth zoning bylaw, and the amendment will keep the property within this zone. However, will include a special provision permitting the reduced exterior side yard setback. As I noted, the R1 zone normally requires a 6 meter setback. Building setbacks to lot lines are required to ensure safety, privacy, and establish development densities in neighborhoods. Corner lots must also consider site triangles and sufficient setbacks to road allowances and the traveled portion of roads to ensure the intersection is clear of obstruction, which allows traffic to flow safely, and for the road and infrastructure maintenance. The applicant has met with staff to discuss the deficient setback and has satisfactorily justified the request. The sketch depicting the development has been submitted by the applicant and was included with the staff report. The relief from the setback is only required toward the rear portion of the property. As such, the request for the reduction of the exterior side yard setback does not present any safety concerns nor create site triangle issues. The reduced setback will not hinder or impede road maintenance and will maintain the general character of the draft approved plan of subdivision. As such, it is staff's recommendation that council approve the application for a zoning bylaw amendment. Thank you.
Mr. Yilmaz, appreciate that. At this time, then I'm going to call for the information about the public meeting details. I think that might be you again, Mr. Yilmaz.
Yeah, so notice was sent out to neighbors within a 120 meter radius of the subject lands, and a sign was posted on the property closest to the public road entrance.
Okay, thank you. And next up then is a report on any correspondence, comments, or reports that may have been received in response to this application. I think I call on the clerk for that one, so just let me set up the sound system here so that we don't create a black hole.
I have not been in receipt of any correspondence in regards to this amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw.
It's more trouble to press those buttons than to take that report. There we go. Okay, so that leaves us in with the opportunity to invite those who are in attendance to provide comment on this application for an amendment. First, we call on those who are in support of the application other than the applicant. Clerk, to your knowledge, is anyone in attendance who has expressed desire to speak in favor? She is indicating no. Next, then, is the opportunity for those who are in opposition to the application to present their case to council. Clerk Berfeldt is again indicating by the shaken head no. And finally, there's the opportunity for the applicant or the applicant's agent to offer any comments about this matter. Are they in attendance and wish to take advantage of this opportunity to your knowledge? Okay, they're not in attendance this evening, so we have no comments whatsoever from public or the applicant at this point. Council, do you have any comments or questions about this matter at this time? Are we seeing anything? Okay, so we're not seeing any indication from council that there are questions or comments to be made. That allows me to bring this meeting to its near conclusion by reading the statutory notice about future actions. And that is that notice of the decision will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. The council's decision is subject to appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. So that brings to an end the public meeting, except for the resolution to adjourn. So I have that resolution before me, that the public meeting for the purpose of a Planning Act application is now adjourned at 7:22 p.m. and that council reconvene into regular open council. Can I call on Deputy Mayor Kellum to be our mover for that?
Yes, I will make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, will you serve as our seconder for that one?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this resolution to adjourn? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And we're missing one.
Mine didn't pop up. I'll log out again, but I am in favor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Richardson. So with that, that is carried. That means that the public meeting is adjourned and we have resumed into regular open council. At this time, then, council, we have the matters that fall out from the public meeting, two resolutions for consideration. The first is a resolution, the second a bylaw. So let's look at the resolution first. The resolution reads that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the application for a zoning bylaw amendment affecting property described as Park Lot 26 and 27, Concession 1, in the list to award Municipality of North Perth identified as Lot 71 of Draft Approved Plan of Subdivision 31T 92002. The proposal is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020, conforms to the policies of the County of Perth Official Plan and List to Award Official Plan, and meets the intent of the North Perth zoning bylaw. Now, Councillor Behrens, can I call on you to be our mover for that?
Yes, I would move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Seiler, can I call on you to be our seconder? Sort of leaping around here.
Yes, I'll second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one from council? Seeing no indication of same, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And next up then is the bylaw. Bylaw number 76-2021 being a bylaw to amend the North Perth zoning bylaw number 6-ZB-1999 as amended, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed. That the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. And I call on Councillor Andreessen to be our mover for this one.
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anstett, will you serve as our second?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on that matter? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Council. That allows us to move forward from item 4 to item 5, which is the reports from departments and key staff. For item 5.1.1, Council is presented with a report from the CAO, further to its earlier request, that outlines possible ways that this council may engage with plans for a North Perth Pride celebration in 2022. I will call on North Perth CAO Chris Snell now to speak to this report. And Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. As mentioned by the Mayor, on June 14th, Council received a letter from Jebediah Haverkamp sharing plans for an upcoming fundraising and launch of the North Perth Pride Community Group. At that meeting, Council passed a resolution directing staff to prepare a report to look at ways that Council can be supportive of the request on behalf of the LGBTQ plus community in North Perth. So based on research, staff have taken note that several municipalities in here in Perth have flown the Pride flag, including West Perth, the city of Stratford, and the town of St. Mary's, and the town of Goderich. And we would consider bringing forward an amended or flag policy at a future council meeting that would permit the flying of the Pride flag. We would also look at our proclamation policy, which coincides with the flag policy. We've done some preliminary work on the investigation of a rainbow crosswalk, including some cost estimates from neighboring municipalities, as well as looked at ways we can collaborate and promote activities with the LGBTQ plus community. One of our suggestions is that we work with the North Perth Community of Character Committee to look at how their activities could align with the activities that are being suggested by council to support this cause. So that's the recommendation is that council supports the request by the constituent in principle, as was asked by the letter, and that we further investigate revisions to the flying of banners and flags and proclamations policy, as well as further investigation for the rainbow crosswalks to be included in the 2022 budget, as well as investigate collaboration of Pride initiatives with other North Perth groups and organizations. I'm prepared to answer any questions council may have.
Thank you, CEO Snell. Councillors, questions or first comments on this matter? Okay, Councillor Anstett first.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Through you. Thanks very much, Chris, for the report. Very happy to see it, and thanks for all the work that you and staff did on this as well. I agree with the declaration and the I agree in support. I'm in support of it in principle. I just had a question surrounding the flag, the policy for flags. So I noticed that this was dated in 2002. And the first part of it says flag to be recognized, to be limited to nationally recognized charities and local organizations. So I'm just curious, is Pride, would that count, or would we have to amend it to fit? Thank you.
To my knowledge, Pride is not a recognized charity, so we would have to amend it to allow or permit the flying of the. So that would be the revisions that we'd be looking at bringing forward. You're correct. The policy has not been reviewed since 2002, so it's probably a good time that the revisions be looked at for this policy anyway.
Right, and no, and that's fine. I was meaning more of the local organization. I was aware it wasn't a charity, but just the local organization. So I just wondered if North Perth Pride would fit into that.
Certainly, the way we've interpreted that definition now, they usually have to be an incorporated organization. I suspect that the Pride group's not looking at being incorporated, so I would doubt that they would fit into that, but we could have those further discussions with the group.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Anstead. Next up is Councillor Behrens.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Just a couple of questions and comments. I somewhat agree with Councillor Anstead in that perhaps it's simply time to take a second look at our policies. I don't like amending a policy specifically for one specific group, but if we feel that the flag policy and that needs to be amended, I think that's what we should do, and then we'll take a look of it. I still don't believe that the municipality should be making proclamations of any sort. I'm a little bit concerned about the cost estimates of the rainbow crosswalks. I know in Minto what they did was they tied banners around the light posts instead in the Pride colors, which in my mind was far more attractive. But, you know, I'm certainly willing to investigate the possibility of that. Where my real concern comes in, Chris, is we all know that our staff are busy, hardworking for the municipal endeavors. I'm not certain that I want to tell staff that they must investigate and collaborate any specific initiatives, not just the one mentioned here, but is it not on the group itself to investigate their own collaboration initiatives with the other service organizations within our municipality? I guess that would be my concern and my comment. As much as, yes, it's lovely to try to do everything, it's just that I'm worried we're going to be spreading some of our staff far too thin to manage all of it. Those are my comments. Thank you.
CEO Snell, did you wish to have some comment in return?
I think with regard to certainly the collaboration aspect is that's why we're looking to really work with an already established group that has a mandate to be inclusionary, and that's with the community of character. We haven't had those discussions yet with the community of character. Certainly our existing organizations, such as working with the North Perth Library and somewhat even in our program services, do recognize and work with existing groups that meet our strategic plan. So I certainly understand the concern of Councillor Behrens. And again, although I certainly do understand that there's a concern around the budgetary spend, also doing what Minto did also takes staff resources as well. So that's also another issue to take into consideration.
Supplementary, Councillor Behrens?
Yeah, just a comment on that. Tying colorful ribbons around a lamp post can be done by the organization itself and not necessarily by a staff person.
Thank you. Next up, I believe, is Deputy Mayor Kelly. Yeah.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg. And following up to what Councillor Anstead said as well, Councillor Behrens, is I'm concerned and have had, I'm not sure about anyone else, several comments, emails, and phone calls about the lowering of the flag. I think this could be opening up something to a lot of different groups. One call to me is late on Saturday. They said that, you know, it's no different than your bylaw with regards to setting a precedence for the halls around the municipality. You know, if you exclude one person to renting them out, are you excluding them here? You know, if I want to put or I want to lower an anti-racist flag, are you going to allow that? Where do you draw the line? So I think moving forward, we have to be very careful with this decision. I'm open to hearing everyone, but so far, the lowering of the flag has been the biggest issue around all the concerns that I have been receiving. But again, I'm still open to comments. Thank you.
CAO Snell, any thoughts or response there?
No, other than that would be part of our further investigations to see how other cities and towns and municipalities around the area have addressed that in their own policies. Because I agree with Councillor Callum. We want to be careful that we don't create a flag policy that would imply that we would fly flags that go against our own strategic policies.
Just as an observation, it's not about lowering a flag, it's about flying a flag, right? Councillor Andreessen, next.
Hi, thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I just wanted to qualify that to say it's not about lowering the flag, it's about raising the flag. I can give a couple of examples of what other government entities are doing, because we are a government entity in our community, and that is to actually extend an additional flagpole in at the municipal offices, and we would continue to fly our Canadian flag and any other flags that are flying. I can't visualize the flags at this time, but we could install an additional flagpole for these kinds of purposes where we could fly the pride flag or other flags of importance at different times of the year, and still, of course, respect, the equity around this group and perhaps other groups that we may need to, at times fly a flag for. This is something that is already being done at provincial government offices and at schools. I know that in my previous work as a principal, I built a brand new school and we had a number of flag poles. We always flew the Canadian flag, and for the entire month of June, our school board also required us to fly the pride flag, and that's a provincial body. So I think that this report's helpful, but I think it's a good consideration moving forward for us to be inclusive and look at these ways to make that happen with perhaps additional flagpoles. Thank you.
Another shot here.
Yeah, supplementary, and I apologize and thank you for bringing that to my attention. There's just been so many things the last few weeks about lowering the flags and raising the flags. I meant about establishing a new flag or raising the flags. So I just want to make that clear, and thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Okay, any other first comments on this? So we're not seeing any, I don't think, but I have taken note that there's some sort of almost abstraction here that we might want to think about in terms of this resolution. There is a proposed resolution, as council knows. The resolution as it reads now actually does say that it would investigate revisions to the North Perth policy for the flying of banners and flags and proclamations, which I think fits with the matter that Councillor Barron's raised with us, that and addresses the fact that this policy is 19 years old. Maybe it is time for another look. So I think that clause in this resolution looks like it meets that objective. I think if I sort of heard things right, that there may be concern amongst council, and that could be tested by a vote on the issue of an installation of a rainbow crosswalk. But remember, at this point, it's just an investigation to finalize the approach and bring that to council for a vote, I would assume. And then inclusion in the budget for 2022. And finally, there's this, the third line is about investigating collaboration of pride initiatives with other North Perth groups and organizations. So I think, again, the way I read that, it's fairly abstract. It allows for staff to come back and let us know, what the resource implications are. And if those are unacceptable to council, then council can ask for revisions or decline to invest further. Does anyone see my analysis of the text any differently? Okay, so let's call up Councillor Richardson next.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I tend to agree with Councillor Behrens and dovetail that with, I do believe that we do need to look at our whole flag bylaw and procedures that we can go ahead for that. And I think that that is certainly warranted and a little outdated, that we need to look at it again. However, I'm just wondering if there's a possibility of part of that report. I think there's certain understanding that there can still be celebration of the month and the inclusivity and stuff like that that might not necessarily incur the cost of being the flagpole down at the town office, but we do have a lot of banners that are in town that are scattered throughout the town, that there's certainly a possibility, like we talked about with the banners, that could certainly make it quite colorful, like just in addition to wrapping the colored ribbons around the telephone poles. But we have a number of light standard banners that are still in the downtown core that could certainly be reflective of those initiatives if we decide to do so. But in agreement to that, I think that might be an option when that report comes back from staff. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Seiler is next.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Thank you, colleagues, for your comments. And I've had similar comments made to me, what you've all spoke about. I guess only one I can speak of is that it was brought to my attention that if we're going to use taxpayers' funds to pay for this, is it our decision or is it their decision? Should they have a say in this? And that could be a good controversy towards us. So I think we need to look at that. Is one of my objectives. So is the group going to raise the funds to do this, or as it comes from our tax base? And I think that we should look at who's going to make the decision. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else, Clerk Bertholz? All right. I've listened to all of your comments on this. I don't think that there's anything in the three proposed investigative actions that actually run contrary to the sentiment that I've heard expressed so far. So unless someone wants to sort of let me know before I read the resolution, we give a fair hearing about how they would like to amend it, then I think we should proceed to consider the resolution again in the context of the discussion that we've had. Anyone on council have any advice at this point before we consider the resolution? Bertholz, are we seeing anything? Okay, so as you know, the CAO has prepared in association with his report a resolution for our consideration. It reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth supports in principle the fundraising event and launch of the first community group geared towards the LGBTQ+ residents in North Perth, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to further investigate the following initiatives. 1, investigate revisions to the North Perth policy for the flying of banners and flags and proclamations. 2, investigate the installation of a rainbow crosswalk. And 3, investigate collaboration of pride initiatives with other North Perth groups and organizations. Can I call on Councillor Andreessen to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Anstett, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So now it's on the floor. Councillors, do you see any reason at this point to make any changes to this, or would you like to have further discussion and debate? Are we seeing any indication? All right. So I think we're at the point where we normally would have the vote. So let's have that vote.
I am in favor. E-scribes
you.
being squirrely.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. We got to get the squirrels taken care of. Where's Councillor Duncan when you need the squirrels taken care of? Right? All right, so that is carried. Thank you. That moves us along to item 5.1.2. In this item, council is presented with a report from the CAO that invites us to award a single source contract to MHBC Planning for the purposes of completing a feasibility study on the development of what are currently considered employment lands and that are formerly known as the Moore property. I'll call on CAO Snell to orient us to his report on this one and for comments. CAO Snell.
Thank you again. As council is aware, we have completed the master class EA on what we've called the Northeast study area to look at servicing that whole Northeast quadrant, northeast of Listowel, including servicing existing development as well as bringing services to lands that could be considered future development. In the 2021 budget process, the budget did include detailed design for the southern portion of the study area and would look like tender documents and construction happening sometime for 2022. With that, we have discussed the municipally owned employment lands, formerly, as the mayor correctly stated, formerly known as the Moore property. MHBC Planning has been involved with the Class EA from the beginning. And we propose that they would be an obvious choice to do the planning and background work to proceed with taking those lands to the next step. Prior to that, MHBC will create an economic feasibility study on the proposed development to give council the comfort level that the development of these lands makes sense financially. So with that, the resolution would be that the municipality would single source MHBC Planning to complete the feasibility study, and then upon review and approval of feasibility study, then HBC would be single source to complete the necessary planning applications to develop the North Perth employment lands. Those would likely include an official plan amendment, a zoning bylaw amendment, and plan of subdivision if council at that time chose to move forward. I'm prepared to answer any questions council may have.
Thanks, CEO Snell. For a project of this scope, what kind of timeline might we expect?
Certainly the feasibility study will be, I would think, would come back to council fairly quickly. I would think probably 60 to 90 days. And then of course the planning process would take some time just because we act like any other developer, and going through the subdivision process does take some time. So I would think it would sort of go into the later part of 2022 at the earliest.
Okay, thank you. Clerk Bertels, do we have any councillors lining up for questions or comments that you're seeing at this point? Councillors, the floor is open to you. Councillor Rothwell first. Councillor Rothwell, you might be muted.
There we are. I had to hit the button twice. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mayor Todd. Thank you, Chris, for the report. I appreciate the comments with respect to the background work which MHBC has been working on. Can you go into more specific detail exactly what they have done to this point and what additional work is actually needed so that we can move forward?
So, MHBC was the planning consultant on the environmental assessment master planning process. So they prepared the conceptual street layout and all the other planning requirements of the EA, which did include a traffic study as well as market, a commercial market review. So MHBC has been involved in both those studies as well. So going forward, if council feels that the feasibility study makes good financial sense, we would require an official plan amendment, a zoning bylaw amendment, and a draft plan of subdivision or a plan of subdivision process to be followed through to create parcels of land that council could then sale for employment land purposes.
Thank you, Chris. My supplementary, we've talked about this before, but the new model in terms of the county planning system is that special projects were to be discussed, and there was no mention of that in the report. I'm just wondering as to, if not, why the county planning staff cannot move forward with the application basis on the foundation work that MHPC has done in terms of the master plan to this point. Thank you.
So I didn't ask specifically about this particular project, but my understanding is currently the capacity of the county planning staff is at maximum, and just trying to get the official plan review completed. But certainly if that's the desire of council, I can specifically ask the manager of planning if this is something they could take on. But my understanding is that their capacity is at full capacity at this time.
We're not seeing others like CEO Snell. My spidey sense tells me that planning at the county is quite busy at this point. So I will lend my voice to support that notion shared by CEO Snell based on my observations at least. Anyone else with comments or questions about this at this point? Okay, well, why don't we consider the resolution that's been put forward for this purpose? The resolution reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth single source MHBC planning to complete a feasibility report for the North Perth owned employment lands, former Moore property, and further that upon council review and approval of the feasibility report, MHBC planning be single source to complete the necessary planning applications to develop the North Perth employment lands, former Moore property. Can I call on Councillor Behrens to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I would move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. CEO Snell, I just have sort of the one question. I think all of council may have interest in the answer to this too. With regards to this matter, I assume that the focus is on developing those lands for employment purposes, so industrial and commercial kinds of use. Is that correct?
Certainly that has been the intent of the previous council, and as well as this council just through the master planning process. That's how they've been identified through the conceptual planning. Now, if during the feasibility phase of the project, council decides otherwise, certainly that could be amended, but that would certainly be council's prerogative. And certainly if council has a desire to change the use, they certainly could do so.
Okay, so at this point, just for the sake of clarity, a mandate to MHBC, if this motion were to approve, will focus on the employment directive, if you will, and will not consider other possible uses in their scope of work. Is that fair?
That would be the general intent, yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that we're all clear. All right, any other discussion or debate? Okay, well, let's have that vote. So that's carried. Thank you, Council. Next up then is item 5.2, which are reports from the clerk's department. For item 5.2.1, council is provided with the annual status update of the joint accessibility plan with the record approval and posting of this plan to the municipality's website. I think I'm going to call on the clerk for the purposes of explaining and. Oh, okay. So I've just been advised by the clerk that Sean McCoy of the county, and Sean, I apologize, I don't have your title ahead of me here, is going to explain this matter to us. And please tell us what your current title is, Sean, while you're doing it. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, very good.
Okay, thank you. I'm the Legislative Services Coordinator at the County of Perth. And today, through you, Mayor Kasenberg, to Council, the report is before you, but I do have a brief slide deck to run through that will cover basically a high-level overview of the Joint Accessibility Plan update, as well as sort of a general accessibility services activity update for the year. And then following that, Tyler Sager, the County Manager Legislative Services / clerk, and myself will be available for any questions, should there be any. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here, if that's okay. And can everybody see the screen okay?
Confirm.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so just going to move into next slide here. So over the last year, the Legislative Services Division at the county has taken on a role of providing accessibility services to the county and the 4 lower tiers. And this includes supporting and developing policies and procedures, helping to ensure our services and facilities are accessible, supporting AODA compliance and training, acting as a resource for any concerns or questions, and providing support to the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, which I'll hopefully refer to from now on as JAAC throughout this this presentation, but I may trip over that acronym, so I might not. So one of our annual tasks is compiling the update for the Joint Accessibility Plan, and the current plan is in effect for 2018 to 2022. And the plan essentially formalizes Perth County municipalities' commitment to ensuring accessibility by removing barriers and meeting our obligations under the AODA. And to ensure the plan's effectiveness, it was developed in consultation with persons with disabilities and the JAAC, and their lived experience being crucial on this front. So this report is essentially just an update that of activities that have taken place in the last year that documents our commitment to our municipal obligations in regards to accessibility. And you can also tell by the date range of the current plan that we'll be focusing efforts towards a new plan in the coming year. So the details of the 2020 update and all the activities related to that are included in the report and are categorized by each of the integrated accessibility standards as per the regulation under the AODA. Most, if not all, of the compliance deadlines stated in the regulation have passed. So our accomplishments listed for the county and for each of the lower tier municipalities, by and large, are basically just reflective of maintaining the good work we've all done so far. So most of what's reported will be related to monitoring and ensuring accessibility is integrated into new projects and initiatives. In terms of goals for this year, the county has accessibility figuring into a number of projects. This includes preparation for an elevator installation at the courthouse, also enhancing access to online services and continuing remote viewing and participation in meetings, and finally, continuing to monitor and improve accessibility integration into our day-to-day operations, such as accessible documents, wherever possible. And as per information supplied by North Perth staff and staff from the 3 other lower tier municipalities, accomplishments and goals had a number of common themes across the county. There was a lot of focus on training, some aspects of improving some infrastructure or facilities, and establishing more online services or adding efficiencies for creating accessible documents and content, including live streaming of council and committee meetings, which I think we can all agree has really improved access to local government for our community members in general. And as you can see here, I've just highlighted a few of the accomplishments from North Perth from the last year that basically illustrate these themes. And these themes continue for 2021 with work on crosswalks, sidewalks, and walking trails. And work is also continuing to ensure internal documents and web content posted on the municipal website continues to be accessible, and as well as focusing on ongoing training. And this includes training related to age-friendly communities and investigating demand for accessible taxis in North Perth. And as stated before, there are several other initiatives planned for the year, which are all detailed in the report. We also want to take an opportunity to highlight some of our accessibility service activities so far this year. As of the fourth quarter of last year, we've implemented quarterly training sessions. These are sort of like webinar style sessions, and they're supplemental to the mandatory training per the AODA. And they focus on different aspects of the accessibility standards. And the main goal of these sessions is to highlight some key areas and common threads to ensure that we continue to meet our obligations under these standards. And so far, we've conducted sessions on web accessibility, maintaining accessible customer service during COVID, and accessibility features integrated in the Perth County Connect transit system. We've also been supporting the JAAC initiatives, which included holding a webinar on age-friendly accessibility and a webinar from the Alzheimer's Society. And as always, we've continued to support the JAAC to facilitate site plan reviews and provide clerking services for meetings and other activities. And of course, we've had the opportunity to work with county and lower tier staff on an ad hoc basis to act as an information resource whenever needed. So that is the gist of the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, but there's some contact information here. If you ever have any questions in the future, you can get in touch with us, and we're happy to help wherever we can. Just going to stop sharing. So if there's any question for myself or for Tyler, we'd be happy to hear them now.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Welcome, Mr. Sager. Council, any questions or comments? It's been my privilege to serve as the county councillor assigned as a member of the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, and it has been an absolutely fascinating journey to learn about these standards and how we can make our communities more age-friendly and accessible. Certainly the work is appreciated of both Clerk Sager and of Mr. McCoy in their services on our path for this. Any questions or comments? Okay, we have a resolution, Council, for your consideration pertaining to this report. An update it reads as follows: that North Perth Council receives the Joint Accessibility Plan Annual Status Update 2020 report, and that North Perth Council approves the Joint Accessibility Plan Annual Status Update 2020, and that staff be directed to post the Joint Accessibility Plan Annual Status Update 2020 on the North Perth website. Councillor Richardson, can I call on you to serve as our mover?
I'll move that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. Discussion or debate? Clerk Bearfelds, are we seeing anything? Okay, we're not seeing anything, so let's have that vote. And someone is missing.
My vote didn't come up. I'm in favor, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. So with that, that is unanimously carried. Gentlemen from the county, thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for all of your service in this very important set of matters. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg.
So that turns our attention next then to item 5.2.2. This matter has been seen by council a couple of times. This is brought forward by the Perth Planning Department through Manager Sally McMullen, and it is a response to this council's request for further information about proposed official plan amendment 189. It also seeks further guidance on any further outstanding matters pertaining to this amendment so that it may be finalized and brought forward for adoption. I understand from our clerk that Ms. McMullen's not joining us this evening. In fairness, the purpose of her not joining is so that we can have a fulsome conversation if we have any further concerns about the report that she's brought forward and revised text for the amendment, which has also come forward in the aftermath of some of the work that this council actually suggested to her. So at this time, Council, I trust that you've read the report. I don't know if you have any questions, and if you did, not quite sure how we'd adjudicate them at this point, short of documenting them. But let's have that discussion perhaps before I put a resolution on the floor, just so that we can get the sense of how the wind is blowing on this one. Anyone wishing to offer commentary, ask questions, even entertain even some debate-like comments at this point, or discussion if you'd like? Are we seeing anyone so indicating, Clerk Berfelds? Okay. Okay, so we're not seeing anything from council at this point. I have a resolution for our consideration. It's a fairly affirmative resolution. I want that very clear at this point. It reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth endorses the amendments proposed regarding surplus farm dwellings in the Perth County Official Plan as presented by Sally McMullen, Manager of Planning for Perth County, at the regular council meetings held on November 16th, 2020, and additional information presented on June 5th, 2021. Right. Can I call on Councillor Seiler to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll move that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
All right. Further opportunity, Council, discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. One of the issues of concern which our council raised, and it was illustrated in the reports from Sally McMullen, dealt with the issue of minimum size of the lot being created. As I saw the original policy brought forward by Perth County and supported by the county planning staff, in fact, tried to give reasons or rationale why we should, the policy should be sort of enlarged to allow for ponds, for example, and gardens and outbuildings and so on to be included in surplus farm severances. In the revised report, I think it was the second page of the report, of Sal's report, does talk that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing staff were concerned about the minimizing or pardon me, diluting of the principal issue of ensuring that the minimum size parcel is being created through the surplus farmhouse policies. I stand firm in suggesting through to this council that, as in previous councils from North Perth, is that surplus farmhouse severances are only for that, surplus farmhouse severances. And if we're going to follow through with what the policy is suggesting here, is that it's the basis upon having larger parcels for surplus farmhouse severances and not the minimum parcel size that's required. So I'm fine with certain other modifications in the policy in terms of allowing for farms, farm parcels to be included outside of the county, as well as to some of the other modifications that have been brought forward. But I am concerned in terms of the widening of policy. And the last point I'll say is that I am still remain concerned regarding the allowing of any animals on these surplus farmhouse policies. Now, I understand that the policy leaves it up to the local municipality as to whether or not to allow for the keeping or raising of animals for non-commercial purposes. But I can assure you the answer has been clear in terms of what the province and what the law has said in terms of the keeping or raising of livestock on undersized parcels, and North Huron in particular was one matter that was brought to the attention of the planning staff, is that there's little or no opportunity for the local municipality to legislate or limit the number of livestock on a parcel in an agricultural zone. Thank you.
Who's next? Mr. Harris is next.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I too share some of Councillor Rothwell's comments, as well as I am very concerned about what we're deeming consolidation of farming operations. We've heard the excuse about land ownership names, and my concern is if you have two different owners owning a property, it isn't a farm consolidation, simply put. I mean, originally when Perth County talked about surplus farmhouse sufferances, it was a concern that, you know, whatever may happen in the ownership aspect of it, we're going to be creating a lot of problems when these farms pass on. And as we all know, they always do. So it may not appear to be a big issue right now. I do believe it's going to be a big issue 10 years from now when people are coming back purchasing what appears to be these empty acres. And even though there's something in the zoning that says you cannot build, there's going to be pressure to build to populate the rural countryside. My other concern, and one of my main concerns, is the confusion between secondary farm occupation, home industry, and I notice now the text also includes small manufacturing. And I'm not sure that is the intent of what was originally proposed as surplus farmhouse severances. We're now going to have small industries out in the countryside. I realize that we do now to some extent because of policies in the past, but if we're now going to say that it's going to be minimum size, but they need to erect a, and we've had this pressure, a 60 by 100 building, 60 feet by 100 building to do small manufacturing on a surplus farmhouse severance lot. Is that really the intention of what this policy was created for? So unfortunately, right now, because there are not really any answers, I simply can't vote to endorse this at this time. Thank you.
Okay, council, any further discussion or debate? I'm myself somewhat uneasy. Maybe the best approach is to test this by putting it to the vote, right? But I find myself somewhat uneasy that some of our team are a little bit concerned still about some of the members here. And, you know, I wonder if endorsing is a premature step. Maybe we need to document some of these remaining concerns. I don't know how strongly felt they are by all councillors, so I'm not sure where to go with that. But you know, I certainly heard the very reasonable, what I thought were very reasonable and rational explanations about possibility for concern, and to want to sort of rush over that if that concern remains, especially because we want to get this right in the interest of our community. So we have a motion on the floor. Let's see if there's any more discussion or comment here. And then we'll decide whether we need to do something with this motion. Councillor Andreessen is next. Yeah.
Thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I just want to share that I really appreciate my fellow councillors' comments. I agree with, well, I feel that that's been helpful in understanding your concerns. And I know this motion's been moved and seconded, but given their concerns, I think it's important to kind of look at what our options could be with this. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Clerk Bearfelds? Okay, we're not seeing any other indication, desire to speak on this one. Oh, Councillor Richardson. Okay, great. Come on in.
Oh, thank you. I'm just wondering if it would be beneficial to take our comments that have been raised tonight and our further issues with implementing this and actually having Sally come back and speak to it. I'm just wondering if that would be of benefit for their actual intent for bringing it in for any, excuse me. My goodness, pardon me. I'm just wondering if there, if there would be of benefit to have Sally come back and address our issues directly. If we have that and maybe put this off for a day or three. Oh,
Yeah, I think there's.
Hello?
Thanks. Yep. Yeah, we hear you, Councillor Richardson. I think there's certainly a willingness on her part to do so. I think she anticipated that, this could go swimmingly for her, the proposition ahead of us here, or that there could be some further concerns, some of which are perhaps not easily reconciled immediately at this meeting and in her absence. So we have this resolution on the floor. What I'm hearing from you, Councillor Richardson, is that perhaps we should defer endorsing the amendment. So we would modify this motion with a word and perhaps add another clause indicating that we intend to collect council's responses, which we've already heard in this meeting, and submit those to her for further consideration and response. Does that seem reasonable, Councillor Richardson?
That is reasonable and my intent.
Thank you. Okay, so you're so moving then, I'm going to assume you're going to move an amendment to this?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm just jotting a few words down here. And then before we go any further, we're going to submit submit comments collected in this meeting. I think we do owe it to Mrs. McMullen to make sure that we get comments to her on a prompt basis. So the staff will act to send the comments that have been made so far. I think, Council, we have to sort of close this off. If you have any further comments that we haven't heard about these matters, you have till noon tomorrow to send an email to Clerk Bearfelds or the reporters, the staff report from this discussion will go forward to Ms. McMullen for consideration. I think that's fair because they need to keep this process moving along, in part because we need a new official plan. Okay, so comments, we're going to submit comments, staff is directed to submit comments from this meeting to the attention of Mrs. McMullen at the county for response. Okay, so let me just walking back past the process here. Councillor Richardson, you so moved. Councillor Rothwell, would you be interested in seconding that?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Okay, so this is on the amendment, which gives different direction than the original motion. All right, are any discussion or debate on the amendment? Okay, we're not seeing any. I'm hoping our trusty deputy clerk has kept up this and kind of has um, the ability to put something before us that we're amending the primary motion as follows. And there's some instruction for the endorsement, staff submitting comments by noon of July 6th to the county planning staff. Okay, trusting on Danette here, let's have the vote on the amendment. Okay, so that's carried. So now that the original motion was amended, it was duly moved and seconded, we can now consider that one fully. Any further discussion or debate on the original, or on the amended? I'll get my words yet. On this motion on the floor, which has been amended. Any further discussion or debate? All right. You didn't see anything, Clerk Berfelds? Okay, so let's have that vote. There we go. That is carried. Thank you, Council, for the patience with that process. And colleagues, thank you for your comments. They have been duly noted and the clerk will document them. Again, opportunity is presented to you before noon tomorrow if you have more that we haven't heard. Let's have that to Clerk Berfelds for comments. All right. Okay, that brings us forward to item 5.2.3. We have the opportunity this evening to consider a motion that was submitted during our last council meeting by Councillor Andreessen pertaining to the adoption of an Indigenous land recognition statement for use in formal meetings of this council and its boards and committees. I'm going to call first on Councillor Andreessen for some orienting comments, and then we'll consider the motion. Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. This notice of motion that I'm presenting to you tonight is a sensitive nature because it really requires us to look deeply into how we as a council need to lead reconciliation and lead our community with an equity lens. The notice of motion initiated is that the municipality of North Perth adopt an Indigenous land acknowledgement that is consistent with other government authorities in our region, that the municipality of North Perth adopt the usage of such land acknowledgement at all formal municipal meetings, committee meetings, and staff meetings, and that the municipality of North Perth provide professional development to support teams and committees in using this land acknowledgement in order to honor our commitment to Indigenous people. And that the land acknowledgement be adopted as follows. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous people of Canada and show our respect to them today. And we recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live in respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Council, I know that through some of your minds and perhaps through some feedback from our community, the question could be, is this the right timing? And is this just on the heels of a national media frenzy? Frankly, it should be, and it's really time for us here at North Perth to move forward. I really wish it had already been done before this time, and I believe that waiting any longer would be disrespectful to Indigenous families in our area. Waiting any longer would show our continued lack of understanding, lack of training and understanding and education of what is required to be a part and a start of reconciliation. So actually it is time. The purpose of a territorial land acknowledgement is to show recognition to Indigenous people for the long history of settlement that has happened in this country, and this recognition is a small part of reconciliation efforts with Indigenous people to restore supportive relationships with this culture and the community. We in North Perth have families who identify as Indigenous, and we owe it to them to show our respect and our recognition of what they have gone through collectively as a culture. The Truth and Reconciliation Report produced 94 calls to action, which were released in 2015. Land acknowledgements are acts of reconciliation. They are a necessary first step towards honoring the original occupants of a place. They also help Canadians recognize and respect Indigenous peoples' inherent kinship beliefs when it comes to the land, especially since those beliefs were restricted for so long. Here in North Perth, it has been challenging to identify groups of Indigenous people who did live on this land, and the challenge has caused some delays over time. But in consultation with local Indigenous people, it has been determined that this land in North Perth was used for hunting purposes and was celebrated as such. Local Indigenous groups contributed to crafting the current land acknowledgement that is now being used at the Avon Maitland District School Board, which is another government entity in our region. The statement is actually very well crafted because it honors relationships to the land with people of the land, and it calls us to all act in peace and friendship. It is what I want for all families in our community. In my experience working in education and attending conferences as a municipal councillor, land acknowledgements are now the norm. These are calls to actions were released in 2015, and it's already 2021. And we are amidst more reports and gaining more perspective of the maltreatment of Indigenous people in our country. Based on more evidence that continues to come to light with the genocide of Indigenous children in residential schools over multiple generations. So why are we honoring and reconciling with Indigenous people? And why are we not recognizing the contributions of all cultures, like Irish, British, European settlers, and now settlers from Afghanistan, India, Africa, and other countries? Well, ultimately, from the training that I've received, Indigenous people were here first. The first settlers were part of colonization that did not respect their needs and cultures of Indigenous people. Indigenous families lost their children, they lost their traditions, their language, and so much more over the course of many generations. As we continue to develop and change and welcome new people to our region, we would never want to be treated that way ourselves, and we would never want to see that treatment continue. We really need to learn from this history and set the stage for all communities to work with all cultures with a lens of equity so that we can all coexist peacefully. And I'm happy to engage in further discussion as we consider this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. I have a resolution for our consideration. Any questions or first comments from others? Fairpelts, are you seeing anything? Okay. Thank you. Councillor Rothwell? Councillor Rothwell?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. And thank you, Councillor Andreessen, for your leadership and compassion and leadership on this issue. You've brought something forward with your initiative, and I'm certainly in support of this resolution and motion. And certainly it's a recognition of long history, as well as those within our community today. I'll be in support. Thank you.
Okay, so I have the resolution. Councillor Andreessen did read it into the record, but I think it's probably appropriate for me to read it into the record again. that the municipality of North Perth adopt an Indigenous land acknowledgement that is consistent with other government authorities in our region, and that the municipality of North Perth adopt the usage of such land acknowledgement at all formal municipal meetings, municipal committee meetings, and staff meetings, and that the municipality provide professional development to support teams and committees in using this land acknowledgement in order to honor a commitment to honoring Indigenous people, and that the land acknowledgement be adopted is as follows. Quote, we acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous people of Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. I'm going to assume this is moved by Councillor Andreessen. Councillor Rothwell, since you've already commented, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will.
Thank you for that. Okay, discussion or debate? Fairfelds, are we seeing anything? Okay, we're not seeing anything. Let's have that vote.
I'm in support, Councillor Rothwell. My vote didn't come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. And I think with that, that is unanimous for those who are in attendance tonight. Thank you, Council. We will begin with that at our next meeting. And I believe that staff will take the necessary actions around brief training interventions for our boards and committees, that kind of thing. Yeah, thank you. We turn now to item 5.3, reports from the programs department. We don't have any reports from that department this evening, but I know they're working on overtime at these days as they roll out summer camps and activities for our youth and continue to support some of the senior programming that we've recently introduced with Lonely No More. So we tip our hat to the programs department, as always, with appreciation for all that they're doing. That brings us to two reports from our facilities department. For item 5.4.1, we are invited to make an amendment to our municipal budget for current year that permits the reassignment of expenses earlier classified as operating to the projects or capital purse, all related to the painting of tennis courts and maintenance tennis courts in Mountain Centennial Park. I'll ask Manager of Facilities Jeff Newell to provide us with any brief comments on this one. Mr. Newell, welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, members of council. With regards to the report, Mayor Kassenberg, you did present it well, and we are looking at transferring the funds from what was seen as a capital refurbishment or improvement to our capital assets. And as such, we would like to make sure that we are transparent in our accounting and that we are indicating that it is a capital expense and not an operational expense as was originally laid out in our budget. With that being said, the recommendation is that the Council of Municipality of North Perth direct staff to transfer the funding of the Moncton Tennis Court in the amount of $10,742 plus HST to be a capital expenditure.
Thank you, Mr. Newell. Any questions or first comments on this matter? Okay, we're not seeing any, so I have a resolution for our consideration that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth direct staff to transfer the funding of the Moncton Tennis Court in the amount of $10,740 plus HST to a capital expenditure. Call on Councillor Anstett to be our mover for that one.
Yes, just one question. Sorry, Mayor Kassenberg, I didn't get it typed in quick enough. Jeff, just is this going to be done? And so I apologize if I'm refreshing my memory here. Is this going to be done by our staff or is it an external company?
Sorry, Councillor Anstett, the work was already completed by an external company that had done it. Yep, sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm in favor.
So Councillor Anstett will be our mover for this one. Councillor Behrens, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, discussion or debate, council? Anyone have concerns here? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Next up is Mr. Newell again. For item 5.4.2, we're invited to adopt in principle a set of guidelines for the development of a dog park in North Perth and to post these to our municipal website so that interested parties may have access to them and understand council's will. I'll ask Mr. Newell to offer some comments, please. Mr. Newell.
Thank you very much. And through you, Mayor, this report is an extension of a report that was very comprehensive that Amy had planned or had presented back in March prior to my commencement with North Perth. The council had asked that staff do a little bit more research with regards to the implementation of a dog park and to gather some additional information. In this report, what is presented is information that staff was able to draw on, as well as answer some of the questions that were asked of staff back at the March 15th meeting. With regards to signage, it indicates the number of different places where it is indicated that people are responsible for cleaning up after their pets. So there's a number of locations where that information is shared. Council also asked about the hours of operation and that we could have them change from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m., provided that there is sufficient lighting. And that would depend on the location, obviously, of the dog park. The establishment of a dog park group, and there has been a number of individuals, 2 or 3, that have come forward and expressed interest in developing a committee that would help with the implementation of the fundraising and dog park location. They would like to get direction from council before they proceed and invest a lot of time into something with the establishment of the group. Staff checked with neighboring municipalities and to seek information about bylaw enforcement challenges that may have happened with dog parks, and there was little to none. The feeling is that if you do have an active dog group, volunteer group, that they would steward the facility and enforce rules that would make it so that typically bylaw would not be called on in incidents because they would be managed by the community group. One of the additional notes is that even with a good policy and clearly outlined responsibilities, this is, after all, a community group, and membership will change. You're going to have some members that are very active and others that will fall off over time. There is a concern of continuity if the group dissolves, and even more concerning if the dog park is to be a municipal facility. What is proposed here is a series of steps that would go to the development of a dog park. Everything from step 1 to step 10 with the ongoing communication between the dog park. But the initial step is that council adopts in principle the guidelines for the development of a dog park in North Perth. And once that has been decided, then we would able to return to those volunteer community members and get the ball rolling to work through those additional steps that are outlined in the report. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Newell, for your report. Yeah, a lot of work has been done here now. First comments or questions from council. Councillor Andreessen first.
Hi, thank you through you, Mayor Kasenberg, and thank you to Mr. Newell for your report. Just a question. I believe there was money already raised. I know it's not a lot, but I think there was money already raised for this purpose. So I just want to make sure perhaps that should be tracked down for the group to access. So that's one thing to consider. I just want to say too that I'm in support of this. I know that I've seen some community feedback out there, and other communities have facilities like this. And actually, in reading the report from Bylaw, you would see that a lot of complaints around dogs. In fact, the majority of the Bylaw complaints were around dogs. So my hope would be that this work with this type of facility, outdoor facility, could help with dogs and helping them be more settled in our community once they have this type of opportunity to be more exercised. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Newell.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Any other councillor wishing to have first comments or questions for Mr. Newell? Okay, we're not seeing any at this time, so I have a resolution then for our consideration that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth recommends the municipality adopt in principle the guidelines for development of a dog park, and that staff be directed to create a municipal page to outline the guidelines for development of a dog park in North Perth. Can I call on Deputy Mayor Pelham to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, will you be the seconder?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Councillor Seiler first.
Yeah, just a question on the lighting, Jeff. All dog parks I've ever seen, they've never had lighting, and it's a big expense to have the lighting, and maybe we should look at running the hours around without the lighting. I know that I've seen the one in Old Sound. It's a good typical one. It's the people have their hours set and they work around the lighting, because with lighting it's going to create a big bill. So anyhow, that's just my question. Thank you.
In response to your question, I think a lot of it will depend on what the location is. There may be ambient lighting. There may be an opportunity for solar paneled lighting as well. But a lot of it will be determined on the location. And we could certainly look at adjusting the hours to make sure that it's suitable, whether that be a dawn till dusk type rule or something along that lines, although winter months, dusk comes awful early. But we could look at the adjusting of hours based on the lighting, and it will depend on the location.
Okay, we're not seeing any other questions or discussion or debate at this point. So given that, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Newell, for both of those reports.
Thank you very much.
Let's move forward to item 5.5 from the Treasury and Finance Department. We have a couple of items here tonight. The first item, 5.5.1, Finance staff has brought forward for council review the accounts as of this day, July 5th. I'll note, as always, that some councillors have declared a potential pecuniary interest in this item and thus will absent themselves from consideration and voting. For the others who are in on this one, are there any questions for the staff? Seeing none, I have a resolution for our consideration. The following summary of accounts be received by council for information. The total is $2,097,391.28. Councillor Seiler, will you serve as the mover of this one?
Yes, I'll move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstedt, will you serve as our seconder? Oh, no, he can't.
Yeah, I can't. Sorry, Mayor Kasenberg.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Councillor Andreessen, will you be our seconder for this one?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
We get lots of action tonight, Councillor Andreessen, with moving and seconding. Okay, any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And I think that's it. That's carried, right? That is carried. Thank you very much. Let's move forward then to item 5.5.2. In this item, council is invited to amend by bylaw an earlier adopted bylaw that authorized construction costs for the Atkin municipal drain. The project is materially complete and the cost is about 1% over the budget that was earlier accepted by this council. Council, Ms. Hill has not joined us tonight, but if you have questions or comments, I'm sure staff can attempt to support. Oh, Ms. Hill is here. Okay. She didn't indicate that she wanted to make a comment earlier in notes to me. So if anyone has any questions at this point, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll move forward with the resolution. Okay, let's get it on the table here. That bylaw number 75-2021 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 17-2018 for the construction of the Atkin municipal drain be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed. And the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Anstett for this one?
Yes, I would move that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Behrens, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Let's have that vote. And that's carried. Thank you. Next up then is 5.5.3. Looks pretty similar to 5.5.2. Council is invited to amend by bylaw the earlier adopted bylaw that authorized construction costs for the Keith municipal drain. The project is materially complete and the cost is 3% over the budget earlier accepted by this council. In the absence of, if you have any questions, let's bring them forward. If not, then we'll consider the resolution. We seeing anything, Clerk Bearfelds? Okay, so the resolution reads as follows: that bylaw 74-2021 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 159-2018 for the construction of the Keith municipal drain be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed and said by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Deputy Mayor Callum to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson, will you be our seconder?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Next then is movement. Thanks to the, first of all, thanks to the Finance Department for all that they do. We have no reports indicated tonight from Environmental Services, but I know that they're always on duty, always taking care of our key environmental solutions that help us have comfortable and healthy lives. Next up then is item 5.7, reports from the Operations Department. We have one item tonight from them. It invites council to award the tender for the improvement of the Holman Municipal Drain to Robinson Farm Drainage. I'm going to call on someone. Who am I calling on, clerk? Mr. Couch is going to speak to this one. Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Couch, for joining us. Welcome. Give us the brief overview here.
Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg. There were 4 bids received and an engineer's recommendation. The bids were 9% over the estimate, which is, however, fairly close. It's a large project, and Robinson Farm Drainage was recommended by the engineer's report for the award of this work. The recommendations in front of council to award to the low bidder.
Thank you, Mr. Couch. Any questions or first comments on this matter from council? We're not seeing any, so I have a resolution that reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth award the tender for the Holman Municipal Drain Improvement as per the recommendation from R.J. Burnside and Associates Limited to Robinson Farm Drainage in the amount of $354,283, HST excluded. Can I call on Councillor Rothwell to be our mover for this one?
I so move.
Thank you. Councillor Seiler, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. That moves us along to fire department. We don't have a report from our fire department this meeting, but sadly, maybe they've had a busy couple of days. And so we thank them all for their service and know that that their diligence is very much appreciated. Let's move on then to item 6 on our agenda. For item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask of staff or our committees? To request opportunity to speak, as always, just let us know in the chat function. Clerk Berfeld is monitoring. Berfeld, anything? Okay, so we can move past that. Item 7, we have received no additional items of correspondence that hasn't already been addressed in our consent agenda. That brings us to item 8 on the agenda, which allows council to consider and enact bylaws. We have one matter here to that end tonight. For item 8.1, we have a proposed bylaw authorizing the signing of a conditional second dwelling agreement with Birch Lawn Farms. Are there any questions or concerns from councillors before we consider the bylaw resolution? We're not seeing any, so we have the draft of the resolution that reads as follows: that bylaw number 79-2021 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a conditional second dwelling agreement with Birch Lawn Farms Limited be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Andreessen to be the mover for this one?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Anstett, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I would second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's move to item 9 on our agenda. Are there any councillors wishing leave to give notice of motion this evening? We're not seeing anything, right, clerk? Okay, so that allows us to move on to item 10. For item 10.1, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? As always, indicate in the chat window and we'll call on you in the appropriate order. Are we seeing anything, Clerk Berfeld? I know that the Listowel Agricultural Fair is soon upon us, and it's certainly incumbent for me to remind the community of the programming that will be offered this year. There's 164 or 165 years of tradition here, and so we certainly encourage, I think it's 165 this year, and so I certainly encourage all of our community to embrace this wonderful group that does so much and is sort of a powerhouse in terms of agricultural societies in Ontario. Councillor Seiler.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I'd just like to say a thank you to staff for getting our pools up and running. I was up to the Memorial Park this morning at around 8:30, and it was really good to see our Listowel pool up and running and the splash pad, and our park looked tremendous, and there's actually some people in picnicking already this morning, and the grass is cut and they're doing a lot of work over at the ballpark, and it all looks really nice, and I've had a lot of comments about it. So thank you very much to everybody for doing so, and the kids are happy. They can enjoy their swimming this summer. Thank you.
You can appreciate, Councillor Seiler, how relieved I am that that's happened too. Trust me. Councillor Andreessen is next.
I just want to thank staff as well for their work to support the Canada Day celebrations. I know that a lot was posted on our website, and a lot of preparations behind the scenes had to happen. So thank you to everyone for putting that together.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen, and I can certainly endorse that sentiment. Anyone else with announcements that we're seeing tonight? Else? No. Okay. So that brings us to agenda item number 11. We have two matters to be considered in a closed session of council tonight. I want to read the resolution that both explains and enables our action to enter closed session. The resolution is as follows: that this committee proceed in camera at 8:56 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to one, a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization regarding the council composition and ward boundary review and a learning skills and training hub. And I call on, gee, I'm kind of lost here. Councillor Behrens, can you serve as our mover for this?
Certainly.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Callum, will you serve as our seconder for this one?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this matter? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. So at this point, we adjourn from open council meeting. Staff and delegates, if you're remained with us on this call to this point and you haven't been invited to participate in the in-camera session, we invite you to exit. And we are going to reconfigure our audiovisual transmissions to put them on hold at YouTube while we reconfigure for our private in-camera session. Just give us a few moments for that. Actually, I think I suggested to the clerk, maybe we should take about 5 minutes now. So let's come back at about 9:02 or 9:03. Gives us a chance for a bio break. See you then. room PC to there. All right. Councillor Richardson, can you do your usual duty and tell us if YouTube is carrying this meeting at this point?
Just waiting for it to load up.
Okay. Is it changing? Matt?
As soon as it comes on, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
We're golden. Live.
We're back. You can hear us. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Okay, this council has concluded its closed session meeting, and there is a return and report item this evening. This evening, we have agreed to commission a consulting agreement with Watson and Associates for the purpose of ward council composition and ward boundary realignment for a future election of municipal council. Resolution, do we have a resolution to this effect yet, Pat? Okay. Okay, so the clerk is going to read this motion. She does have something composed for us, so just let me set my audio settings appropriately.
So it was actually the resolution that was provided in the report that the Council Municipality of North Perth will retain Watson and Associates Economists Limited to complete a council composition and ward boundary review for the amount of $55,000 of disbursements excluding HST.
Thank you, Council. I'm going to trust that you all heard that. I'll call on Councillor Behrens. Will you serve as mover for this?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Kellum, will you serve as our seconder for this one?
Yes, I'll second it. And it was in the report that Pat sent everyone on Friday.
Okay,
Thank you.
Great. So I think council understands the resolution. Is there any further discussion or debate now that we're in open session and dealing with this matter as we did in the in-camera session? Okay, I don't think we have e-scribe functioning at this point. So this is going to be a manual vote. Council, is there anyone opposed? Okay, we're not seeing any opposed, so that motion is carried. Thank you very much. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business through what is called the Confirmatory Bylaw. I have the draft of a Confirmatory Bylaw number 80-2021 for our consideration tonight. It reads as follows. The bylaw number 80-2021, being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Richardson to be our mover for this one?
I will move that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as our seconder? Councillor Rothwell?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate? All right. Are there any opposed? We see no indication of that, so that is carried. Now, councillors, we've completed the deliberations and taken action on the business that did come before us tonight. I have a motion to adjourn, which reads as follows. That the council meeting adjourn at 9:53 p.m. to meet again for general council business 2 weeks from now on Monday, July 12th. No, is it next week? July 19th. We have the wrong date here. Monday, July 19th, 2021 at 7 p.m. 2 weeks from now, not next week. Let's see here. Councillor Seiler, will you be our mover for that?
Yes, I'll move that.
Councillor Andreessen, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
That's not debatable. Are there any opposed? And that is carried. That means, council, that we'll meet again on Monday, July 19th, 2 weeks from now, again using the same digital technologies. Thank you for an impressive meeting. This meeting is adjourned. Have a good week. Have a good 2 weeks.